Welcome to the CEO Project Podcast, where Jim Schlexer, author of the best-selling book, Great CEOs Are Lazy, and the founder of the CEO Project, provides ideas and tools to help CEOs of mid to large-sized companies grow and optimize their businesses. Now, let's get started with the show. Welcome, everybody, to the CEO Project Podcast. My name is Jim Schlexer. I am your host. Well, you've come for an interesting CEO Project Podcast. Today, we're going to go from tequila to speed to hugging our haters all over the map. I have with me a friend of the organization and just all in all around great guy. Baer is a business growth and customer experience author, researcher, advisor. He's a seventh generation entrepreneur. He's written seven. We need another one. Best-selling books and created 6 multi-million-dollar companies. Okay, we need another multi-million-dollar company then. He's consulted for more than 700 brands, including Nike, Oracle, IBM, and the United Nations. He was inducted into the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame and voted a global guru for internet marketing and customer experience 3 years in a row. And in his spare time, he is the second most popular tequila influencer and educator on the planet. I guess, Clooney, you just can't do the Clooney thing, huh? Hey.
Well, I'm second most popular non-celebrity division.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Jay.
Clooney or me and The Rock, right? It's me and some realtor from California, but I'll take it. It's still good.
Yeah, good. Well, welcome, Jay. We're so glad to have you this morning. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's dig in. I mean, we had you at our CEO Summit a couple of years ago, and people just lost their mind over your talk. Not surprising for a Hall of Fame speaker. But you talked a lot about speed there, and I hear people quoting your speech to this day.
Good.
So, yeah, right. So it worked. So give us the gist of, speed as a competitive advantage, speed as a customer experience leverage point, because I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, I think it's probably more true now, even when the last time we talked about it.
It ain't getting slower.
Yeah, that's it, right? So the big idea here is that we care about time more than ever. Yeah. Pandemic's partially responsible for that, right? It sort of taught us a number of things, but a lot of the trends we saw coming out of the pandemic, people not wanting to go to the office because they want to commute and spending more time with their kids and all that, it's all the same trend, which is that we care about time more than ever. So we did a bunch of research on this, did the largest research project ever on the relationship between responsiveness and revenue. And we discovered that, in fact, it is true that people will vote with their dollars if that speed is offered to them. 51% of all customers will hire whomever contacts them first, regardless of price.
Wow.
More than half. And that probably makes anecdotal sense. Most people are like, yeah, I tried to get a hold of somebody. I tried to hire a plumber and they wouldn't get back to me. And then somebody else got back to me sooner. Like everybody's lived that at some point. So it makes sense that you would hire whoever gets back to you first. But then how many times do you actually run your business as if that were the case? Not very often, right? And so
meaning be there first always.
Yeah. Find a way to engineer that you are going to be faster than your competition, right? So what we say in the book is that if you give your customers time, they will give you money. If you cost your customers,
by the way, no, this phrase is the signature of the whole speech. That's the one I hear people saying back to me. So go ahead and do it again. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's
do
fine.
It again.
If you give your customers time, they will give you money. If you cost your customers time, it will cost you money. And that is mathematically proven. Like that is not just Jay saying a thing. Like we have the research, we have the receipts on this premise. And I would argue it's even more viable now than it was a couple of years ago because of the rise of AI. Look, AI is upending everything and will continue to do so. But by my way of thinking, Jim, the real implications for AI aren't necessarily, you can make stuff faster, you can do things more efficiently. The real implications for AI are what it's going to do to customer expectations. It is going to bend them skyward in a way we've never experienced before. You think
more than Amazon did already?
Absolutely, because it touches more things, right? So certainly around speed, around personalization, around empathy, around proactive and predictive service, all of these things that AI can do, we're going to expect so much more of businesses than we have as consumers heretofore. And then the other big implication for AI in my world that I think would be interesting for your listeners is you will not be able to maintain an execution advantage versus your competition.
Hmm.
Because when everybody has the same robots, you're not going to have a better robot, right? It will be so commoditized very quickly, already is, that you're not going to be able to like out AI the other guy, not for very long.
Right.
So if you can't win on execution, there's only two ways you can win. You can win on the quality of your ideas.
Yep.
And you can win on what you do with your excess capacity. So work with me on this. Let's say that because of AI, once it's fully integrated in your business, you have 25% more time, 25% more resources, 25% more whatever.
Sure. And the accountants say, tell me which 25% of the people I fire so I can make more money. But
Right.
yes, keep going.
But this is no, you nailed it. This is the question. Okay. So if you get
Yeah.
25% more, right, what used to take 40 hours now takes 30 or whatever. That becomes the question. Do you get rid of 25% of your people,
Right,
and that money drops to the bottom line? Do you provide better service to customers and charge them more? Do you enter new markets? Do you engage in M&A? What you do as a business leader with that 25% is literally the defining factor in the new breed of winners and losers for the next 36 months. I believe that wholeheartedly.
And do you have a view on better answers in that set that you presented?
No, because I think
Okay.
it really depends on what are you seeking as a business and as a business person, right? Are you trying to take share from competitors?
Right.
In which case I would think make your product better, enter new markets, M&A, right? Or are you trying to boost profits because you're thinking, hey, I'm pretty close to retirement and we're just going to flip this thing, right? It really is almost a personal motivation question. I don't know the answers yet, but if I do another whole global research project followed by a book, it's going to be about that.
Interesting. I talk about, sort of marquee companies and the three bases of competition. So there's cost competitors, there's customer intimacy competitors, and there's innovation competitors. And really, those are your only three options. So maybe the answer is, if you're a cost competitor, the answer is push it to the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
If you're a customer intimacy competitor, you push it to the experience. And if you're an innovation competitor, you push it to development and new cool products that nobody has.
Yeah, I love that framework. I think that's really, really smart, especially off the top of your head.
Feel free to steal it for the book.
Let's write that book together.
That's great. So, let's go to speed, because I think there's some real life examples that everybody can identify with. I'm a big traveler, as I know you are. And, first we did TSA pre, and then they got clear. Yeah. And if they had the Egyptian caravan that carried me to the gate, I would pay money for that, right?
Salon chair with the four guys. Yeah.
And a massage, the whole deal. Yeah. Grapes, peeled grapes. Yeah, I want that. So here's the thing, though. Like, TSA pre has now become normal.
Yeah, I know.
At least in DC. Like, I've shown up and seen a line of hundreds of people in TSA pre. I'm like,
hey, should I just go in the regular and take off my shoes, right?
Well, what happened to my super double top secret special way of getting to into the airport? Yeah. Is that normal, that like once there's an advantage like that, it's a sort of a tragedy of the commons? Everybody rushes in and now it's not so special anymore?
Is it normal?
Have you seen that happen?
I think, yes, I've seen it happen for sure. I think it is normal. That will happen at a different pace and rate based on how much or how little that opportunity is marketed to those to whom it's available. TSA pre was, the government did a very significant multi-year program, like, to promote TSA pre to people like my mom who barely travel at all, right? And
right, yeah,
you should have this, and damn, it worked, right? But the fundamental opportunity remains really strong, because we did the research for this in the book, that 1 in 4 customers will pay as much as 50% more to not wait. And that's your people. That's your clear audience, right? And that opportunity, we call it offering the fast pass. That opportunity is legitimate in functionally every business. There are a few where it's a little bit trickier, but in almost every business, you can and arguably should offer customers the ability to pay you more to not wait. Like, I am so mad, Jim, that I did not discover this when I still ran a consulting firm.
Yeah.
Because invariably we'd have tons of big companies for whom we were doing business strategy, customer experience strategy, digital strategy. And somebody would come along and say, hey, Jay, can you and your team, we're gonna do TikTok for the first time. Can you work on a TikTok strategy for us? We'd be like, yeah, we'd love to do that, but we got 3 people online, so we can't start on this for like 45 days, maybe 60 days. And they're all bummed out, and maybe they're going to go to a different consulting firm. And I'm like, I don't want to lose those guys. It's a big client, blah, blah, blah. What I should have done, but was not smart enough at the time to do, is say, okay, let me see what I can do. Yeah, we can move you to the front of the line, but it's going to cost you 20% more. Now, these are big companies. They're not going to care.
All right.
And then you say, all right, well, but what do you do to the one that you disappointed who was going to be first? So here's what you do. You say to them, hey, I know we were going to work on your strategy, but we've got this new client who's got kind of an emergency situation. What we're going to maybe do, if it's okay with you, is do theirs first. It'll push you back 3 weeks. Well, look, we know that's a hassle. It's a total inconvenience. And, we really appreciate your flexibility. We're going to discount your invoice by 10%. Would that be okay?
Plus 20 minus 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're making 10% more pure profit for doing nothing other than shuffling your people who have a number to buy ham at the deli. And this works in every business, and you should absolutely do it because it's free cash.
Yeah. We've talked about this in a number of more manufacturing operational businesses that I've been involved in and run. They're like, well, we should, when somebody wants it quick, can we get it done quick? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But the normal process isn't that fast. So the normal process is 10 days and they need it in 3. We can get it done in 3 if we kind of walk it through the system, right? And the ops guys go, well, A, you shouldn't do that because you're messing everything up. But B, if we can really do it in 3 days, why don't we always do it in 3 days?
Yeah, that is the question. But then somebody wants it in 1 day. And then
we cross that bridge when we cross it, right?
Yeah,
but it is a serious question. If you go, well, I know we can get it done in 3 if we have to. So CEO and COO goes, well, if we can, why don't we always? And it's puts pressure on the operational side of the business if there is an accelerated path, unless you engineer it. That's the thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's the secondary benefit, right? So not only do you win net new margin, you also learn some important lessons about your own ops that maybe you can use to improve the company overall, right? You're basically getting paid to do your own optimization.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. And, the figure of metric that we used to look at is value added time divided by total cycle time.
Yeah.
So the amount of time that somebody's actually doing something to add value for a customer, right? Building the PowerPoint, doing the research, whatever it is, divided by the total time that took for us to do that project, you'll be very disappointed when you see the numbers, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of waiting. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like 25% of the time we're actually doing anything that makes us any money whatsoever. This is insane. And so,
well, and that's one of the great lessons in the book and in the research, Jim, is that if you accept my premise that you have a window of opportunity right now to lean into speed before your competitors do, and then if you do that, it will create a competitive advantage for you, revenue, profits, et cetera. I think it is unimpeachably true.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you can't just be like, yeah, let's be faster, because in almost every case, what slows you down is all the internal handoffs and internal processes. Like I was just doing a big presentation for an enormous global bank, and it was a little tough love because I was like, look, the reason you guys aren't faster is because of all the somewhat unnecessary checks and balances and handoffs and lag time. Every time something has to go from this department to this department, right? It costs 2 days for no good reason. Because that's how we've always done it. And that was great, in the 80s when people would send something in the mail and wait for a week, and they were totally okay with that. But in an AI era, a week is a year, right?
Yeah.
And, you just have to fundamentally re-examine the value proposition of all these internal checks and obstacles.
What you're reminding me of is the whole re-engineering the corporation Michael Hammer stuff of eliminating non-value add and consolidating, eliminating handoffs as a way to accelerate speed and performance, obviously. And I think that's related to this, right? That's what's got to happen in the background if you're really going to get quite fast.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. In a regulated industry, it's harder because some of these balances are not yours to set aside. But yet, I think culturally, you have to say, how can we create a glide path for anything that's actually customer facing?
Interesting. Is there a limit to this? Because I look at like Disney, right? And Disney they did Fast Pass, and now I hear they've gotten rid of that. It's something else now.
It's the same thing, but they call it Lightning Lane now. I don't know why.
Okay, got it. But if you really want to throw money at the problem, you go get a concierge guide that brings you.
Yes, I've heard that. Yeah,
through the secret doors to the front of the line, and
yeah.
And you know what I've heard from some of my wealthier clients are like, you got to do it, right? There's no, and I'm like, what does it cost? They go, who cares? Is there a limit? Like at some point, people go, I'm tapping out. Like the time is not worth, because you could argue, right? You could argue as a CEO or something. You go, a day is worth $10,000 to me. An hour is worth $1,000. If they can save me a couple hours,
Yeah.
it's worth a couple of grand. Happy to pay it.
This is the entire principle of private aviation.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's the whole reason private jets exist, other than just the flex, right? I mean, if you're saving time, then that should be accredited to value in the organization in theory. So is there a limit? In abstract, no. In practice, yes, because everybody has a different value on their time based on their discretionary income.
Yeah.
Right. So at some point, you're like, look, I value my time more than most people, but I don't value my time as much as a Fortune 50 CEO.
There you go. You know, we used to talk about this for home improvement projects, right? When I was young and poor, we're going to paint the bathroom. I go, I don't have the money, so I'm going to invest the time.
Yeah, right.
As I got more money, I go, I'm not putting the time in. I'm going to throw money at the problem and make it go away, right?
Yeah, so it also helps that there's a quality advantage as well, typically.
Well, tell me about it. Yeah, you don't want to look at my painting. My wallpapering is even worse. So yes, I completely agree.
Yes, indeed.
Let's go backward for a second. You know, I loved your book, Hug Your Haters.
Thank
you. You know, sometimes we get complaints, you know, people that flame us and hate us. And, you know, a lot of people go into defense, right? And your advice was that is exactly the wrong direction to go in. So just talk to us a little bit about, you know, strong recovery on customer relations.
I mean, one of the key things, Jim, is understanding this fact that for every 100 dissatisfied customers, okay, only 5 will complain.
Yeah, I used to say 10, but I buy 5. I completely buy 5.
And that's across the totality of customer complaint avenues, right? That's face-to-face, that's fax, that's email, phone call, live chat, hostage note, like all the ways, right?
What was that word? Fax? Fax? Fax?
Yeah. If you get a fax complaint now, you better pay attention. Somebody's serious.
Somebody's grandma is really upset with you.
You got the scrolly paper, you got to unfold it. Yeah. But what that means mathematically, of course, is that for every actual complaint you get, 19 people on average had the same problem, but they just don't care enough about you to say anything. They just stop giving you money, right? Like, what happened to that customer? They used to be really loyal. What happened to those guys, right? They just bailed, right? So a couple things are true. One, counting complaints is a really poor measure of customer experience. And two, people who complain, despite the fact that sometimes the tone and tenor is not what we'd like it to be, sometimes it's factually a little bit messy, whatever. But we have to understand that people who complain are literally volunteering their time to tell you how to run a better company. And that is something we should embrace, not run from. But as you mentioned, when we are confronted with negativity, this has nothing to do with your skills as a leader. It's human nature. It is brain wiring. When we are confronted with negativity, it literally triggers a fight or flight response. We talked to a lot of psychiatrists for the book and documented all this. It literally puts you on tilt. And that's why you either get sort of the red mist and you can't, you know, those customers, they're wrong. We would never do that. Da, 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 da. Or sometimes you might see this in ratings and review sites. You know, the company lashes back out if the customer and it gets into this whole like tit for tat, which is usually humorous, but doesn't really help the company at all. So yeah, you're much better off understanding that complaints truly are a gift, that there's a kernel of truth typically in all of them, usually, and that they can, if done correctly, be a big source of optimization and improvement in your organization. One of the companies we've worked with in the past, Pella Windows and Doors, the big custom windows and doors company out of Pella, Iowa, they have a really good organization, great culture, very customer focused, very high NPS scores, despite the fact that they've got a couple hundred kind of local quasi franchisees, right? So they don't have like full operational control. So that's a tough way to keep quality high. Anyway, they do a good job. But Jim, you'll love this. They start every senior managers meeting, right? Every C-suite meeting, every board meeting, every time they're in the boardroom, right? They start every meeting the same way. They read a customer complaint.
Wow.
That's how they open the meeting, because they want to make sure that everybody remembers, despite the fact that they got it right 90% of the time today, they got it wrong 10% of the time. And once you lose sight of the fact that, oh, 88, that's a pretty good net promoter score, you're still disappointing 12% of your customers. I just think it's a really good way to keep that in mind.
I love that. I tell people, what's the opposite of love? And they go, hate. I'm like, nope, ambivalence.
Yep.
And so the high energy state of actually complaining is hate, but it's still highly engaged, actually.
Yes.
As opposed to the other 19 that are ambivalent, like, I'm just never going to talk to them. I think that's the thing that I always think about when you talk about this is, and then there's research about if you really love a brand, you tell 3 people. If you hate it, you tell, like, it's like 10 or 20. It's a multiplicative effect of the 19 that don't tell you is scary. The math is really scary, I think.
It really is. And this is why you don't see 3-star reviews. Because, well, I got pretty much what I thought I was going to get, 3 stars. Like, nobody takes the time to write that because it's not a warning or here's a tip, right? You look at the distribution curve. I did an analysis on this with Yelp once. It's dramatically skewed to 1s and 5s, right? 2s, 3s, and 4s are mathematically much less common. However, I will tell you that the 3-star review is gold. Like, if you're an executive and you don't have time to read all your reviews or whatever, read all the 3 stars, because those are people who it's almost always way longer and super detailed, because they're like, well, on the other hand, we actually did a whole analysis of people in actually my Talk Triggers book, who are those people who actually are predisposed to just documenting their experiences and writing long reviews and sort of 3-star reviews. And they're super, super valuable customers.
Wow. Yeah. Read your 3-star reviews. That may be the name of this podcast. Who knows? That's really good. No, it's really good. So what are you working on now? What's got you engaged at the moment?
Doing lots of speaking around, obviously, speed, but also as we kind of open the show with this idea of what's the true implications for AI. And I think it's going to be customer expectations, right? And how do we possibly stay on top of them, right? When they bend skyward straight up. So talking about that a lot. And then lots of tequila stuff, man, where you're making videos every day about tequila and helping tequila brands grow. Just bought a house in Mexico, which is great. So I'm a little closer to the tequila region, which is fantastic. It's not the worst job in the world.
Yeah, no, it's great. Given your point of there's an end state where everybody has the same robots and you can't gain an advantage, the only advantage is temporal.
Yeah.
Meaning if I move before the other person and I have it and they don't, I gain advantage until they figure that out and they go buy themselves a robot.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So there is an advantage in here if you move quickly.
Yes, exactly. And same thing with speed. Like, as I don't know if I did it when we were together, but oftentimes now when I do the speed presentation, the time to win, I say to people, like, every single thing I'm going to tell you in this presentation, you're going to do. I guarantee it. You're going to do all of these things. It's just when. You're not going to have a choice. Your customers will force you to do everything I tell you. It's just whether you do it now and outflank your competitors, or you do it later and your competitors have outflanked you.
Interesting.
And the same is true of all the books I've written, right? I did a book about social media. That happened. I did a book about content marketing. That happened. I did a book about hugging your haters. That's largely happened. The only book I've written and research I've done that hasn't really taught in the way that I expected it to is businesses more strategically and proactively using word of mouth as a customer acquisition tactic. Right. It still doesn't get the love it deserves, personally.
No, but it's a slow burn.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's harder to measure than other forms of customer acquisition. And I think that's one of the reasons why people feel like it's witchcraft, but it's not. Yeah. They just think it is.
Interesting. You need to change your last name to Popcorn and become a futurist.
I know, but I'm not a futurist. I'm a presentist.
But you're saying what I told you was going to happen happened. That's a futurist, right? You're like the weatherman. You don't even actually have to be right.
That's right. Yeah, but my thing is, like, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the next 2 years, right? And that's not a Faith Popcorn thing. I would never want to be a futurist, and I don't claim to be one.
There you go.
And so you're a futurist.
Near-term futurist? What's new in tequila then?
It's such a tricky business. There's ostensibly 2,000 tequila brands. There are 500 sort of functional brands that are true competitors in the marketplace in the United States. Tequila, the big rise in tequila consumption, which was powered by the pandemic, is over. So now it's 1-2 points growth a year, which ain't nothing. It's better than beer and wine, which are seeing huge declines. It's a real interesting marketing and ops challenge that somebody like me really loves, because you've got all these brands that basically sell the exact same thing. There's different flavors and whatever, but Like, what is your customer avatar and why this brand versus that brand? If it's a celebrity powered brand, like, Casamigos or Terramana, which is owned by The Rock, et cetera, you've got that natural affinity and advantage. Setting that aside, what is your differentiator, right? Maybe a little bit on price or quality, but how do you make that known to the audience? And of course, because of the way alcohol works in the United States, where every state is its own market and you have to have licensed and distribution in each market, the 50 states are essentially 50 countries functionally.
Yep.
So it is really, really challenging. It's a lot of fun for my business partner, Maddie, and I to work on. And obviously we get a lot of great feedback every day from people who say, I didn't know any of these things. We watch your videos every day and all that. So it's a
nice,
fun business.
I mean, this has happened before. I mean, vodka.
Yeah.
It is the same product, essentially, no matter, I mean, it was potatoes. It doesn't matter. You distill it to 99% and then you bring it back down. It's the same.
Yes.
And yet they've done the branding thing to some extent, so.
It's different too, because vodka you can make anywhere.
Sure.
Tequila has to be made in a very small portion of Mexico, right? It is is an internationally protected product the same way that champagne is, or Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. The whole region where you can make tequila is no larger than the size of Tennessee.
Wow.
So every drop of tequila in the world is from that little geographical region. Most of the producers are related at some point, maybe or whatever. There's only 175 distilleries in the world.
Oh
right?
My God, this is the Appalachia of Mexico.
Kind of, yeah. Yes, but a $20 billion business.
Wow. Okay, interesting. Because I know brown liquors are on the descendancy.
Yes.
There was a bourbon thing, and now we're coming off on bourbon. So
not really the drop that you're seeing in beer and wine. But a lot of bourbon drinkers have gotten fatigued by the sort of innovation cycle and price increases, and it's just kind of gotten a little too hypey. And so you're starting to see more and more bourbon drinkers move over to tequila, because most of the aged tequilas are aged in ex-bourbon barrels.
True.
So you get some of those same flavor notes and maybe without quite as much nonsense in the market.
Interesting. I do wine, and at least wine has the advantage of terroir all over the planet, right? As opposed to agave, it's only made, as you said, there. So
there's two regions. You've got the highlands and the valley. There's definitely a difference between those two, but it really is just it's an anodyne, one or the other. And because of the way it's produced, even that difference is, I wouldn't say as stark as people might lead you to believe, but the soil is very different in those two areas.
There should be a different sugar content too, right? With altitude, a little cooler.
Yes, but agaves take 6 to 7 years to mature. Yes, but it's also when they harvest it. So your residual bricks, the sugar level in the agave is somewhat dictated by where it's grown, but more so when they choose to pull it, which is often an economic decision.
Same as grapes. Yeah. You can hang them longer or not. Yeah. Interesting. Well, fascinating. Well, Jay, if people want to have more of you in their life, or have you come speak to their people, or what's the best way to get a hold of you?
jbaer.com is the main website. My newsletter every 2 weeks, all about business, customer experience, always little case studies and stories that will help you. It's thebaerfacts.com.
And for those not looking at it, it's BAER, not like the roar. It's the other one.
Yes, thank you. BAERfacts.com. And then if you want to get some tequila info, I'm Tequila J Baer on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. But
always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks God. It's so good. We could go for hours. I mean, easy.
Next up, 24-hour live stream.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. Be like,
we'll have wine and tequila on the show. We'll just do pairings. Let's do it. Let's do a tasting.
How many hours do you think we're going to make on that?
That'd be fine.
Before it gets sloppy. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. As I said, we covered the waterfront, and just for me, it was fascinating. I hope it was for you too. And join us next time on the CEO Project Podcast. Thanks for listening to the CEO Project Podcast. We'll see you next time. Be sure to subscribe to get all the future episodes, and check out our website, www.theceoproject.com.